This is just a sample of the audiobook. To get the complete audiobook, access the link posted in the first comment.
Grandfather was just the same. He hadn't moved. Searchlight put her big front paws up on the bed and rested her head on Grandfather's chest. She licked his beard, which was full of tears. Doc Smith proceeded to examine Grandfather. She used just about everything in her little black bag. "What's that for?" Little Willy asked. "What are you doing now?" "Must you ask so many questions?" Doc Smith said. "Grandfather says it's good to ask questions." Doc Smith pulled a long silver object from her doctor's bag. "What's that for?" Little Willy asked. "Hush!" "Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry." When Doc Smith had finished her examination, she put everything back into her little black bag. Then she walked over to the window and looked out at the field of potatoes. After a moment, she asked, "How's the crop this year, Willie?" "Grandfather says it's the best ever." Doc Smith rubbed her wrinkled face. "What's wrong with him?" Little Willy asked. "Do you owe anybody money?" she asked. "No," Little Willy answered. "What's wrong? Why won't you tell me what's wrong?" "Well, that's just it," she said. "There is nothing wrong with him." "You mean he's not sick?" "Medically, he's as healthy as an ox. Could live to be 100 if he wanted to." "I don't understand," Little Willy said. Doc Smith took a deep breath, and then she began, "It happens when a person gives up on life, for whatever reason. Starts up here in the mind first, then it spreads to the body. It's a real sickness, all right, and there's no cure except in the person's own mind. I'm sorry, child, but it appears that your grandfather just doesn't want to live anymore." Little Willy was silent for a long time before he spoke. "But what about fishing? And the rodeo? And turkey dinners? Doesn't he want to do those things anymore?" Grandfather shut his eyes, and tears rolled down his cheeks and disappeared into his beard. "I'm sure he does," Doc Smith said, putting her arm around Little Willy. "It must be something else." Little Willy stared at the floor. I'll find out what's wrong and make it better. You'll see. I'll make Grandfather want to live again." And Searchlight barked loudly. A 10-year-old boy cannot run a farm, but you can't tell a 10-year-old boy that, especially a boy like Little Willy. Grandfather grew potatoes, and that's exactly what Little Willy was going to do. The harvest was just weeks away, and Little Willy was sure that if the crop was a good one, Grandfather would get well. Hadn't Grandfather been overly concerned about the crop this year? Hadn't he insisted that every square inch of land be planted? Hadn't he gotten up in the middle of the night to check the irrigation? "Gonna be our best ever, Willie," he had said, and he had said it over and over again. Yes, after the harvest, everything would be all right. Little Willy was sure of it. But Doc Smith wasn't. "He's getting worse," she said 3 weeks later. "It's best to face these things, Willie. Your grandfather is going to die." "He'll get better. You'll see. Wait till after the harvest." Doc Smith shook her head. "I think you should consider letting Mrs. Peacock in town take care of him, like she does those other sickly folks. He'll be in good hands until the end comes." Doc Smith stepped up into the wagon. "You can come live with me until we make plans." She looked at Searchlight. "I'm sure there's a farmer in these parts who needs a good work dog." Searchlight growled, causing Doc Smith's horse, Rex, to pull the wagon forward a few feet. "Believe me, Willie, it's better this way." "No!" shouted Little Willy. "We're a family, don't you see? We gotta stick together." Searchlight barked loudly, causing the horse to rear up on his hind legs and then take off running. Doc Smith jammed her foot on the brake, but it didn't do any good. The wagon disappeared down the road in a cloud of dust. Little Willy and Searchlight looked at each other, and then Little Willy broke out laughing. Searchlight joined him by barking again. Little Willy knelt down, took Searchlight by the ears, and looked directly into her eyes. She had the greenest eyes.